This is how modern Christianity keeps women single. From all the sloganized sayings and taglines that everybody knows, happy wife, happy life, to as what we have already discussed as the inculcated, imprinted idea that women are supposed to come after men and clean up after them and make sure they're not fucking up. Meanwhile, the man is usually portrayed as a retard, like Family Guy, where Peter's literally a retard, or stupid like Homer Simpson or Al Bundy, or as a submissive, borderline effeminate man that kind of just follows what the overbearing wife says, like Modern Family. It's been imprinted on us by almost everything. It has basically become like mother worship. And now there's like Marian cults that basically worship Mary. It has become common, not only in the church, but among parents generally, to almost dissuade their children not to marry young. Almost always it's because they are not in a good relationship themselves and are then actually passing down what is actually a curse down to their children so that they can also have dysfunctional relationships. And what is the church doing about it? If anything, it propagates this idea that women are supposed to be this overbearing force in men's lives. Part 2 on how modern Christianity keeps women single. It is a problem in modern Christianity and its ability to teach its young women who are going to go out in the world and find husbands that they need a man. Instead, they view sex and sexual urges in a way that only results in suppression and ignorance. Ignorance. They've accepted the Babylonian premise that you give your youth to education and working and getting a job, which is what men are supposed to do. Like, education not even necessary for all men, and they make women do it. So all your most fertile years, the safer years to give birth and have less risk to your child and to yourself, gone. And all those sexual urges that you're having in that time, and obviously either satisfying or suppressing really bad, we'll just ignore that. We'll just ignore that, avoid that. You need a husband if you want to satisfy those sexual urges and not be in sexual immorality. And there'll still be temptation outside of your marriage. But 1 Corinthians 7 says, because of sexual immorality, each man should have a wife and each wife should have a husband. But does the church enforce that or encourage that? No, the default setting is dating. Dating, which is sex without commitment. Dating isn't biblical. Part 3 of how modern Christianity keeps women single. So while parents are letting preteens, teens, young adults date who have no idea or experience in their life about any of these matters, remember, dating is sex without commitment. That's all that means. They are simultaneously telling their children to wait for marriage. They're letting them date while avoiding the actual consequences and implications of them having those sexual urges that every young adult has. They're also telling them to marry later while they're in 1 year, 2 year, even 5 year relationships with no indication that they're going to get married. Pop quiz hotshot, what begins a marriage? When Rebecca is retrieved to be the wife of Isaac, the first time they see each other, they're like, oh shit, they're hot, and they have sex. And that's when she becomes his woman in that tent. No wedding ceremony, no reception. They went to the tent. Now she is his woman. What does the statute say? 2 or 3 witnesses, right? If a man sleeps with another woman who are out of wedlock, they're supposed to be married. In and of itself, there should be 2 witnesses. You're married if you had sex. This kind of brings me to the next subject, which is sticking around, commitment, and honoring duty. Part 4 of how modern Christianity keeps women single. Before I move on to commitment and honoring duty, I just want to harp on dating and how dangerous it really is. First off, people scoff at, preteens, you can let them date. Well, in 2008, I believe that's the year, the median age for losing your virginity was 12. That's the number in the middle of the data set, where half are lower or equal to and half are equal to or above. This is the problem with suppression and ignorance. Why does a man approach a woman to date? Why does a man approach a woman to marry? It's to have sex. But nowadays it's not. It's to consummate the marriage that they've been in for a long time having sex in. Which brings me to the subject of commitment. Commitment doesn't come with a probationary period. It doesn't come with a free taste or free trial. Sex is a spiritual signature on a contract that is a covenant between two people and meaning marriage. Because it's in the eyes of God. God can see you, you know. But once again, are we bringing up children in the church or with Christian parents to be someone who is able to commit to something? I could barely get a young person to commit to a game of 3v3 basketball or a 45-minute game of League of Legends, let alone a marriage. 5 of how modern Christianity keeps women single. So Christian parents and the church allows these children essentially to date while telling them to wait, which is basically saying don't get married young, doesn't pass on the traits of commitment, staying in a relationship, honoring duty, probably because they themselves don't have a good relationship or communication skills, which is exactly why they're not telling them to get married young, which is instead just passing on the curse of them having a bad relationship later on in life. And if they do get married, they're inundated in a system that incentivizes divorce by alimony, getting half of what the man makes, child support, government assistance. And does the church step in? Do couples go to the church to settle these things? Maybe if that's what the woman wants, and if that's not what the woman wants, all these incentives, the woman can just go file for divorce. But does the Bible say that the woman has the authority to file for divorce of their husband? Answer, no, only the man has the authority to divorce, because the man has the authority in the relationship. He is the head, as Christ is the head of the church. Christ has authority over the church. The Bible says, wives, submit to your husbands. But that is not what modern Christian women do, nor does the church teach that. And 80+% of divorces are initiated by women. 6 of how modern Christianity keeps women single. All comes down to this underlying theme in modern Christianity, which removes accountability not only from women, but from the believer in general. Doctrines like once saved, always saved, which basically says you can't do anything wrong in God's eyes once you've been saved, or moving the goalposts, well, you were never saved in the first place if you're going to do that thing, which is undefined and vague and nebulous, to this Pentecostal, like, oh, God will give you what do you desire if you pray really, really hard and believe it. Sure, we're allowed to do miracles and we can walk on water. Would you advise a person to walk to Europe from the U.S.? To prosperity gospel, where if you give, you'll get, you just have to want it. That all seeps into just telling women, oh, you just have to wait and pray to God and God will just plop one in your lap, but plop a good man in your lap. All those women that died praying so hard for a husband, dying alone, no children, no family. Did they not believe enough? Or is it possible, since we have a faith of being accountable, acknowledging that we sin and we can't save ourselves, that's why we need Jesus Christ, we could consider that maybe those women weren't marriage material or not doing enough to be married. Instead, many women just say, oh, we should just wait. And then people tell them that's okay, because God will deliver them a man like Santa Claus. Part 7 of how modern Christianity keeps women single. So this whole wait, pray, and be good ideology has effectively taken all accountability away from women. People say, oh, no, you have to believe and have faith. You're accountable to your faith. You have to believe. You have to be good, and God will check the naughty list and the good list, and then he'll bring you a husband. But once again, ignorance, ignoring the idea that a woman has her own role in becoming a wife, they just say, wait. And that takes me to the next part of the accountability. The Torah, the law, says that you should bring up your children in the right way and speak about it when they wake up and when they're going to bed and when they're eating and when you're walking by the way, and write it on your doorpost and your fence post. But as we discussed, Christian parents aren't bringing them up in the right way, showing them how to commit, telling them to get married young. In fact, going back to bringing it to about the church says that the law is done away with. But you're talking about sexual immorality. What is that based on? The Old Testament. And it's not in the 10 Commandments. Homosexuality, bestiality, incest, prostitution, all these things are in the Torah. They're not in the 10 Commandments. But then the church would have to be accountable for all the false things that it teaches. And Christians would have to be accountable for reading their Bibles. So instead, women aren't accountable for finding a husband.